August 30th, 1974. At first, what seemed like another ordinary day would later go on to become the deadliest terror attack in the history of Japan, only to be dethroned in 1995 by the Tokyo subway sarin attack by a cult called Aum Shinrikyo. The post-World War era was the time of economic miracle for Japan. The whole world stood in awe at the rate of progress of Japan. But like all things, it was not all sunshine and rainbows. The post-World War era was also the time period of rise of many violent leftist terror organizations in Japan, one of which was the East Asia Anti-Japan Armed Front, also known as the EJAF, a new left terror organization which believed in anti-Japanese anarchism. But why was it against Japan? To understand this, we have to go to the origins of the East Asia Anti-Japan Armed Front. The thing that distinguished East Asia Anti-Japan Armed Front from other leftist terror organizations was the fact that its members were originally high school and university classmates. The group leader Daidoji was born on June 5, 1948 in the Kushiro city of Kushiro Subprefecture, on the island of Hokkaido in Japan. His father was a civil servant who worked in occupied Manchuria, which was a puppet state of the Empire of Japan in northeast China that existed from 1932 until its dissolution in 1945. While Daidoji was a high school student, he witnessed discrimination against his Ainu classmates, an experience which would shape his worldview. While he was a student at Hosei University, Daidoji organized study sessions on the history of Japanese imperialism with several other students, with whom Daidoji would form the East Asia Anti-Japan Armed Front. During these study sessions, the group members investigated how Japanese companies benefited from the use of forced labor in Japanese-occupied Korea. The students learned about the history of aggression of imperialist Japan during World War II against Korea and Ainu and formed its anti-Japanese ideology. Their ideology believed that not only the rulers in power but also the Japanese corporations and its laborers were the perpetrators of Japanese aggression and thus deserved to be attacked. In December 1972, the group decided on the name East Asia Anti-Japan Armed Front, abbreviated as EJAF, but they were aware that this was a name that could be used generically by any anti-Japanese group. The EJAF decided they needed individual names for their own cells. Daidoji and his team adopted the name the Wolf Cell as a tribute to the destroyed Honshu wolf, likening the oppressed masses with that eradicated beast. To bring their messages to the public, they set about writing their own tract, the Hara Hara Tokii. Hara Hara Tokii is an overview of the anti-Japanese ideology in which the EJAF believed and also detailed explanations of methods of waging guerrilla war and of making and setting up bombs. Masashi Daidoji, the leader of East Asia Anti-Japan Armed Front, wrote the text and collaborators who were not members typed it with the typewriter. It was printed at a printing company in Kushiro, Hokkaido, where Daidoji's high school senior worked. The EJAF divided itself into small terrorist cells symbolically named after animals to represent the nature of their organization and the themes of its ideology. The wolf cell likened the oppressed masses who were being tormented by capitalists to the extinct Honshu wolf. Its members were the founder Masashi Daidoji, his wife Ayako Daidoji, as well as Toshiaki Masunaga and Norio Sasaki. And then later on, thanks to the spread of Hara Hara Tokii, the group gained enough members for their Scorpion Cell and Fangs of the Earth Cell. The Scorpion Cell likened itself to a scorpion that will topple big capital and big buildings with the deadly poison of its own small organization. Its members were Yoshimasa Kurikawa, Hisaichi Yugijin, and Satoshi Kirishima. The Fangs of the Earth Cell made its goal an ideal world without nation-states or capitalists and likened itself to fangs rising from the earth to oppose them. Its members were Nodoka Saito and his wife Yukiko Ekita. In 1973, the EJAF were preparing for their attacks, developing bombs and saving up money to fund their operations. They constructed the bombs with the tools and basic necessities that they had on hand, but there were also members who dug under the floor of their own apartments and created underground bomb-making cellars. On August 14, 1974, they tried to blow up the iron bridge over which the Emperor Hirohito's royal train was traveling, which they code-named the Operation Rainbow. The plot was aborted because a member was spotted shortly before it was to be put into action. They committed several bombings between 1972 to 1975 at various corporates which they believed were fueling Japanese imperialism, but what really shook the Japanese society as a whole was their biggest attack, the Mitsubishi Heavy Industries bombing by the Wolf Cell of the EJAF. Mitsubishi Heavy Industries was one of the Japanese corporations that took advantage of forced labor during the Japanese occupation of Korea and China. Other than their past, Mitsubishi Heavy Industries also manufactured military weapons that were later used by the United States against North Vietnam in the Vietnam War in the early 1970s. IAJAF condemned this and decided to make Mitsubishi Heavy Industries Headquarters in Tokyo one of their targets. At 12:10 p.m. of August 30, 1974, Daidoji and fellow IAJAF member Toshiaki Masunaga caught a taxi to Marunouchi, where the Mitsubishi Heavy Industries Headquarters was located. Upon arriving, Daidoji took 2 containers containing a total of 40 kilograms of explosives and placed these containers in front of the building. Despite a telephoned warning to the staff at the Mitsubishi headquarters by IAJAF member Norio Sasaki, the area was not evacuated in time due to the public assuming it was hoax. One of the bombs exploded at 12:45 p.m. lunchtime. The other failed to explode. Total of 8 people died in the incident, with more than 376 being injured. The bombing was loud enough to be heard from Shinjuku, over 5 kilometers away. The bombing caused many more casualties than the IAJAF expected due to the lack of evacuation. This caused an outrage among the media. One editor said, "This incident is a most atrocious challenge to our society." Society itself was the target and the victim. The Japan Times called for a show of public wrath against the terrorists. However, rightist Prime Minister Kakui Tanaka and leaders of leftist parties remained silent about the incident. Nervousness among the Tokyo population increased following 2 other bombings carried out by the group in the city in 1974, with the police still not having made arrests. Finally, 7 members of IAJAF were arrested on May 19, 1975. In 1987, Masashi Daidoji and Toshiaki Masunaga were convicted and sentenced to death. Daidoji, leader of the former group's Wolf Cell, said during court hearings that the bombing was a mistake. In May 1999, while on death row, he apologized to the victims for the first time, saying, "Our causing casualties is not something I can justify. I would like to apologize from the bottom of my heart." Daidoji died of multiple myeloma on May 24, 2017 at the Tokyo Detention Center. It seemed like this was the end of the story, but 50 years after the incident in January 2024, a man claimed to be one of the former member of the Scorpion Cell of the IAJAF and a participant in the terror attack at the Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. His name was Satoshi Kirishima. It was revealed that he had been living under the pseudonym of Hiroshi Uchida in Fujisawa of Kanagawa Prefecture in Japan. He died 3 days later in the Kamakura city of the same prefecture. Satoshi Kirishima was not the only one who went unpunished. Ayako Daidoji, maiden name Kamazawa, was born in Kushiro City of Hokkaido in Japan on October 20, 1948. She attended Kushiro Koryo High School, where she even was the valedictorian. Ayako was one of the members of IAJAF and wife of the group leader Masashi Daidoji. Ayako was arrested alongside several members of IAJAF on May 19, 1975. She attempted to ingest poison before being arrested, but failed. On September 28, 1977, 5 members of the Japanese Red Army hijacked JAL Flight 472, shortly after the plane took off from Mumbai, India en route from Paris to Tokyo. The JRA members forced the plane to land at Dhaka International Airport, where the hijackers began negotiations with a team of government representatives led by Air Vice Marshal A.G. Mahmood. The JRA hijackers managed to secure the release of 6 prisoners held in Japan, including Ayako Daidoji, who were transported to Dhaka International Airport on October 2, 1977 by a chartered flight. Subsequently, the JRA released 118 hostages and flew to Algeria, where the remaining hostages were freed, and the plane was impounded by the authorities. Following her release, Ayako Daidoji joined the Japanese Red Army in 1979. In 2019, the Japanese police released a new wanted poster for Ayako Daidoji, declaring that she is still at large. Her whereabouts are still unknown.